Howdy howdy, my name is Lily from FryxGames, and you're listening to Reading Rulebooks. Today we are going to be going over the rulebook for Terraforming Mars, so let's get into it. The Terraforming Announcement. Since its inception in 2174, the world government has continually strived for global unity and peace. Our mission is to be humanity's shared tool for shaping a better future. Earth is overpopulated and resources are dwindling. We now face the choice either to recede or to expand into space to find new homes for humanity. For this reason, we need to turn Mars into a habitable planet. The terraforming of Mars is an endeavor so great that it will take the united effort of mankind to accomplish. The world government will therefore inaugurate a terraforming committee and instate a universal tax for this purpose. Any corporation or enterprise contributing to the terraforming process will be generously rewarded by the committee. We believe that these measures will, eventually, result in a habitable planet for our descendants. Thank you for your attention. Levi Uken, World Government Communicator, January 16, 2315 AD. Background. Humanity has begun to spread throughout the solar system. On Mars, a few small colonies have been built. These offer protection from the environment from a planet which is terribly cold, dry, and with almost no atmosphere. To be able to increase immigration from Earth, Mars needs to be terraformed by altering its environment until humans can live there without expensive protective gear and without even minor accidents becoming lethal. Therefore, the world government has decided to support any organization that contributes to this vast undertaking. The generous funding attracts gigantic corporations that compete to expand their business and emerge as the most influential force behind the terraforming. In this era, great opportunities lie in the taming of the Red Planet. Game overview. In Terraforming Mars, you control a corporation and you buy and place cards describing different projects. The projects often directly or indirectly contribute to the terraforming process, but can also consist of business enterprises of different kinds. In order to win, you have to accumulate a good terraforming rating and many victory points. Your terraform rating is increased each time you raise a global parameter, temperature, oxygen, or ocean. Your terraform rating determines your basic income as well as your basic score. As the terraforming process proceeds, the projects become more feasible. Additional victory points are awarded for anything enhancing mankind's grip on the solar system. This can be anything from founding cities to building infrastructure, or protecting the environment. Time is measured in generations, and each generation starts with a turn order phase, followed by a research phase, in which players access new cards. In the action phase, players take turns doing one or two actions, going around the table until everyone has passed. Then, in the production phase, all players produce resources according to their production parameters on the player boards, and gain the income from their terraform rating. The central game board has tracks for temperature, oxygen level, terraform rating, and generations. There is a surface map where you add ocean tiles, greenery tiles, and city tiles as the game progresses. There is also a list of standard projects available to all players, as well as milestones and awards that players can compete for. The game ends when there is enough oxygen to breathe, 14%, oceans enough to allow Earth-like weather, 9%, and the temperature is well above freezing, plus 8 degrees Celsius. It will then be possible, if not comfortable, to live on the surface of Mars. The winner is the player with the most victory points at the end of the game. Victory points come from your terraform rating, your tiles on the game board, won awards, claimed milestones, and victory points on cards you have played. Global parameters. Temperature, oxygen, and ocean are called global parameters. Whenever you raise one of them, your terraform rating also increases by that much, giving you a higher income and score. When a global parameter has reached its goal, it can't be raised any further and does not increase your terraform rating. You may still play cards and actions that increase the parameter, just ignore that part of the effect. When all three global parameters have reached their goal, the game ends after that generation, after the production phase. A terraformed Mars. Each area or tile on the game represents 1% of the Martian surface. So 9 ocean tiles represent 9% ocean coverage, which should be enough to enable stable hydraulical cycles, air moisture, and weather patterns. Water is also important, as it moderates temperature swings. At very low temperatures, oceans are actually glaciers for most of the year. Although the temperature on Mars can already reach 20 degrees Celsius, on hot summer days, this is not enough. To enable liquid oceans, the mean temperature has to be positive, at least at the equator. The most important parameter for terraforming is the oxygen level. Without a breathable atmosphere, Mars is not livable, not terraformed. Earth's oxygen content is 21% of the atmosphere, 0.21 atm. At higher altitudes, this decreases as the atmosphere becomes thinner. At 3,000 meters, the oxygen level is 0.14 atm, and there are fewer major cities at this altitude, mostly in the Andes and in China. The most notable examples are the Bolivian cities El Alto, 4,150 meters, and La Paz, 3,640 meters, each with nearly 1 million inhabitants. Earth's atmosphere also contains 78% nitrogen, the main component responsible for air pressure. Air pressure is also important, if not as crucial as oxygen level. Another aspect of terraforming is Mars's very weak magnetic fields. These aspects are not represented by a global parameter, but usually result in a higher terraform rating for the player as indicated on the specific cards. Game board. The image corresponding to this section can be found on page 4 of the rulebook. 1. Terraform rating track. All players start at 20. This is your basic income, which we'll talk about a little later, and victory points. You increase it every time you terraform. 2. Generation track. The generation marker measures time, rounds, and starts at 1, moving up the terraform rating track. 3. Solo games start with a terraform rating of 14 and end after generation 14. 4. Oxygen. This global parameter starts at 0%. This percentage compares to Earth's 21% oxygen. 5. Ocean tiles. This global parameter starts with 9 tiles in a stack here to be placed on the board during the game. 6. Temperature. This global parameter, mean temperature at the equator, starts at -30 degrees Celsius. 7. Bonus steps. If you raise the parameter to this point, you also get the attached bonus. The bonus steps. As the atmosphere thickens, greenhouse effects will raise the temperature, as indicated by the bonus 8% oxygen. As the temperature rises, carbon dioxide will thaw out, adding a greenhouse warning effect, as indicated by the heat production bonuses. Then, at 0 degrees Celsius, icebound water in the soil will begin to melt, adding water to the surface. 8. Standard projects. May be used by any player regardless of what cards you have. More on this later. 9. Milestones and awards. Can be a good source of extra victory points. More on this later. 10. Placement bonuses. When placing a tile on an area with a placement bonus, you get the printed resources or cards. More on this later. 11. Ocean reserved areas. Blue areas are reserved for ocean tiles. Ocean tiles may only be placed here, and no other tile may be placed here. 12. Special reserve areas. 3 areas are reserved for specific cities. No other tiles may be placed there. The map. The game board has an accurate map of the Tharsis region of Mars, including Vals, Marineris, and 3 of the 4 great volcanoes. Only the region around Olympus Mons is missing. The areas reserved for ocean tiles are low in elevation, so water will naturally flow there. The plant bonuses around the equator simulate the higher average temperatures, will make it easier for life to thrive there. Mountain ridges have steel and titanium bonuses, while other interesting sites may have a card draw bonus, like the Viking site where the first man-made lander touched down. Tiles. The game board has a map where tiles may be placed. When placing a tile, you must first check to see if there are any placement restrictions. There are areas reserved for ocean and specific cities, where no other tiles may be placed. Furthermore, each tile may have specific restrictions printed on the respective card or in the summaries below. When you place the tile, you receive the placement bonus printed on that area, if any. You also get a bonus for placing tiles next to ocean tiles. Ocean tile. Ocean tiles may only be placed on areas reserved for ocean. Placing an ocean tile increases your terraform rating 1 step. Ocean tiles are not owned by any player. Each ocean tile on the board provides a 2 mega credit placement bonus for any player later placing a tile, even another ocean next to it. Example, if you place a city tile adjacent to 2 different ocean tiles, you get 4 mega credits as placement bonus. Greenery tile. If possible, greenery tiles must be placed next to another tile that you own. If you have no available area next to your tiles, or if you have no tile at all, you may place the greenery tile on any available area. Place a player marker on it to mark your ownership. When placing a greenery tile, you increase the oxygen level, if possible, and also your terraform rating. If you can't raise the oxygen level, you don't increase in terraform rating either. Greenery tiles are worth 1 victory point at the end of the game, but also provide 1 victory point to any adjacent city. City tile may not be placed next to another city. Exception: Noctis City must always be placed on its reserved area. Add a player marker. Each city tile is worth 1 victory point for each adjacent greenery tile, regardless of owner, at the end of the game. Note, the card capital places the unique capital city tile, which counts and scores like a normal city tile, but additionally gives you victory points for adjacent ocean tiles, as stated on the card. Special tiles. Some cards allow you to place special tiles. Any function or placement restriction is described on the card. Place the tile and place a player marker on it. Markers. Markers are not supposed to run out. If they do, use convenient replacements. Resource cubes. Resources are collected on the player board or on specific cards. There are many types of resources, but they are marked by these cubes. Copper equals 1, silver equals 5, gold equals 10. Player markers. Each player uses his own color to mark terraform rating, ownership of tiles, production, and to indicate used blue card actions. Temperature, oxygen, and generation markers. Start at the beginning of the respective track. First player marker shifts clockwise each generation. Player boards. The player board keeps track of your current resources and production. Resource cubes are placed in their respective boxes, and player markers are used on the production tracks. In the game, resource icons refer to resource cubes, while resource icons inside brown boxes refer to production of that resource. 1. Production tracks. If you gain production of a resource, mark the new production level with your player marker. Production is not limited to 10. Example, if you play a card that increases your heat production 3 steps from 19 to 22, you mark this by having 2 player markers on the 10 and 1 marker on 2 on the production track above the heat box. Impressive! During the production phase, you add resource cubes equal to your production. 2. Mega credits are used to pay for cards and other things. Note, your mega credit income is the sum of your mega credit production and your terraform rating. Mega credit production is the only production that can be negative, but it may never be lowered below -5. 3. Steel is only used to pay for cards with a building tag and is worth 2 mega credits per cube. You may pay with both mega credits and steel, but you get no refund for overpaying with steel. 4. Titanium is only used to pay for cards with a space tag and is worth 3 mega credits per cube, similar to steel. 5. Plants may be converted into greenery tiles by using the depicted action. 6. Energy is used by many cards. All leftover energy is converted into heat at the beginning of the production phase. Heat may be spent to raise temperature 1 step by using the depicted action. Cards. Each player starts the game with a corporation card. During the game, players buy and play many project cards to get benefits of different kinds. Project cards are divided into active cards, blue frame, automated cards, green frame, and event cards, red frame. We'll talk about how they are played in a bit more detail a little later on. 1. Tag places the card in certain categories, which can affect or be affected by other cards or by the player board, i.e., you can pay with steel when playing a building tag. 2. Starting conditions. This tells you how much money, mega credits, you start with, as well as other starting resources and production. Some corporations also have a fixed first action. 3. Effect or action. Boxes marked by a blue ribbon show an ongoing effect or action that may be used during the game. Actions may be used only once per generation, while effects are always active. 4. Flavor text. gives you some background information and feeling for the card. 5. Cost. This is what you pay to play the card from your hand. To get cards into your hand, you must first buy them during the research phase, which we'll talk about in a little bit. 6. Requirement. Any requirement must be met in order to play the card. Some cards require a global parameter to have reached a certain level, while others can only be played while the parameter is still low. Some cards require that you have certain tags or production. Note, in order to play the card, you must also be able to perform the effect of the card. Note also that the requirement only needs to be fulfilled when playing the card, not when you use it later. 7. Immediate effects. Most cards affect your, or your opponent's, resources or production. You may also get tiles to place or other effects. 8. VP, or victory points. Some cards give you victory points at the end of the game. If you are uncertain of how a card works, use the text in parentheses. Setup. This describes the setup for the standard game of 2 to 5 players. We'll cover additional rules for other game variants in a later section. 1. Game board. Place the game board centrally on the table. Place the 9 ocean tiles on their reserved space. Place the temperature and oxygen markers on their starting positions. Also place the generation marker on 1 on the terraform rating track. 2. Resource cubes and remaining tiles are placed so that everyone can reach them. 3. Project deck. Make sure you have no corporate era cards in the project deck or among the corporation cards. These are marked with a red or white icon in the lower left edge. Shuffle the project cards and place the project deck next to the board. Leave space for a discard pile beside it. Players. The player who most recently won a game of Terraforming Mars is given the first player marker. Players choose their colors and take the corresponding player markers and a player board. In a standard game, you start with 1 extra production of each resource, so place a player marker on number 1 of each track on the player board. Each player also places 1 marker on the starting position 20 of the terraform rating track on the game board. 5. Deal cards. Players new to Terraforming Mars each get a beginner corporation card and 10 project cards, while the other players are now dealt 2 normal corporation cards and 10 project cards. 6. Choose cards. A beginner corporation gets to keep all their 10 cards for free, while other players now simultaneously choose which corporation to play and what project cards to keep in their starting hand. Each card you keep will cost 3 mega credits from the corporation you choose. 7. Starting conditions. In player order, each player reveal which corporation they will play, get any starting resources and production stated on the corporation card, pay for the cards they keep. Each card costs 3 mega credits, and the remaining cards are discarded in a common discard pile. Cards are always discarded face down. Put the discarded corporation back in the box. Be aware that your resources for the following few generations will be quite limited until you get your economy going. 8. Start the game. The first generation starts without a player order phase and without a research phase, since you just perform those phases during setup. So the first player just starts the action phase. Example: Kim, Stanley, and Robinson decide to play a standard game of Terraforming Mars. They each choose their color, take a player board, and mark starting production by placing markers on 1 on the 6 production tracks. Kim, the first player, deals 10 project cards and 2 corporation cards to each player. They examine their cards, and when they have all decided which cards and corporations they want, they start to reveal them in player order. Kim reveals her corporation, Phobolog, which gives her 10 titanium resources and 23 mega credits that she collects on her player board. Then she declares that she buys 5 cards to her hand, paying 15 mega credits for them. She's got a few expensive space cards that will put her titanium to good use. Then she discards the unused corporation card back into the box, and the 5 unbought project cards face down into the discard pile next to the deck. Stanley then reveals he is going to play Thorgate, starting with 48 mega credits and 1 extra energy production, which he marks on his player board. Stanley decides to keep all 10 cards and pays 30 mega credits for them. Robinson decides to play Theris Republic. He adds 40 mega credits to his player board and pays 12 mega credits for the 4 cards he decides to keep, leaving 28 mega credits. As his first action, he will get to place a city tile. Not only that, but the city tile may give him a placement bonus as well, and his corporation card says that he may increase his mega credit production 1 step each time a city tile is placed on Mars, and that he also gets 3 mega credits back when he places any city himself. And now, the first generation starts with Kim taking the first turn in the action phase. Generations. Because of the long time spans needed for the projects, this game is played in a series of generations. Each generation the player goes through is 4 phases. 1. Player order phase. The first player marker shifts 1 step clockwise, and the generation marker is moved up 1 step. This phase is skipped the first generation. See setup. 2. Research phase. Each player draws 4 cards and decides which of them he wants to buy to his hand. Each card costs 3 mega credits to buy to the hand, and you may buy 0 to 4 cards. The rest of the 4 cards drawn are discarded face down on the discard pile. There is no hand limit. If the deck runs out of cards, shuffle the discard pile to form a new deck and continue play. This phase is also skipped the first generation. See setup. Example. In the second generation, the players have their first normal research phase. They put down their hand cards and draw 4 cards each to buy from. Stanley decides to buy 3 of his cards, so he pays 9 mega credits and discards the remaining cards, adding 3 new cards to his hand. 3. Action phase. Players take 1 or 2 actions each turn or pass. Play proceeds clockwise around the table until all players have passed. The actions may be combined in any way the player chooses. The available actions are A. Play a card from your hand. B. Use a standard project. C. Claim a milestone. D. Fund an award. E. Use the action on a blue card. F. Convert 8 plants into a greenery tile, which gives an oxygen increase, as described on the player board. G. Convert 8 heat into a temperature increase, as described on the player board. You can choose to take 1 or 2 actions on your turn. If you take no actions at all, pass, you are out of the round and may not take any more actions this generation. But as long as you take actions, you will get more turns. When everyone has passed, the action phase ends. Example. Stanley starts the second generation action phase by using the standard project Sell Patents. He discards a card to gain 1 mega credit. He realized that that card was not really helpful for his situation. Plus, he wants to see what other players do before deciding his own course of action. After that, Robinson uses the standard project city and pays 25 mega credits to place a city and increase his mega credit production 1 step. Being Tharsis Republic, this gives him another mega credit production and 3 mega credits back, besides the normal tile placement bonus. Content with just 1 action, he tells Kim to start her turn. Kim plays the space project Asteroid Mining at a cost of 30 mega credits, spending 8 titanium. It's a space project. Because of Phobolog's effect, each titanium is worth 4 mega credits, which makes a total of 32 mega credits. She could have paid 7 titanium plus 2 mega credits, but pays 8 anyway because she's low on cash. Asteroid Mining allows Kim to increase her titanium production 2 steps, so she adjusts that parameter on her player board and then places the card before her. Kim decides to place another space card as her second action, spending more titanium in the process before giving the turn to Stanley, who now has decided to go for geothermal power. That card has a power tag and costs 11 mega credits. But because Stanley has the Corporation Thorgate with a discount effect for power cards, he only needs to pay 8 mega credits for it. And so the turn continues around until everyone is out by doing no actions. 4. Production phase. All players perform this phase simultaneously. First, all energy is converted into heat. Move all resource cubes from the energy box to the heat box. Secondly, all players receive new resources. Players get mega credits according to their terraform rating, plus any mega credit production, which may be negative. Then the players also get any other resources they have production of according to the player board. Place all generated resources in their corresponding boxes. Finally, remove player markers from used action cards to mark that they may be used again next generation. Now you're ready to start the next generation. Example: Kim gains 21 mega credits from her Terraform rating and mega credit production. She also produces 3 titanium resources because she played asteroid mining earlier, and 1 each of the other resources, adding them to her player board. Actions. As stated earlier, there are 7 different actions that players may choose from on their turn. Players may do 1 or 2 actions on their turn in any combination. For example, 2 of the same action. By choosing 2 actions, a player can surprise the others by doing more than the expected and beat them to some goal or bonus. Choosing only 1 action can be useful too. It can be used to wait out your opponents, or just to do a no-brainer while thinking about your more important decisions. A. Play a card from your hand. When playing a card, there are 3 steps to consider. 1. Check the requirements. 2. Pay for the card and get any immediate effects. 3. Place the card appropriately. In order to play a card, you must meet its requirements and be able to perform the effects stated on the card. With the following exceptions, you may play a card that raises global parameters that have already reached their goal. For example, when there are no more ocean tiles or when the temperature is at +8 degrees Celsius. Adds resources that you can't collect. For example, adding microbe resources without having any microbe project to place them on. Removes resources for any player, red bordered icon. Red bordered resource icons if you can't or do not wish to. Even if these effects can't be performed, you may still play the card, performing all other effects as usual. Example: Kim can play Asteroid even if the temperature has reached its goal, but then she gets no Terraform rating. She may also choose not to remove any planet at all, or just do it partly. Maybe only Kim herself has planets, or maybe Stanley or Robinson have less than 3 planets to remove. All planets must be taken from the same player though. The cards shown on page 9 each have a requirement listed next to the card's cost. To play card A, you need to have titanium production. To play card B, the oxygen level needs to be 9% or lower. You also need to have energy production, since the card requires you to decrease your energy production. To play card D, the oxygen level must be 9% or higher. You also need to have plant production, since the card requires you to decrease your plant production. Card E requires 5 oxygen and energy production. The same cost required to play the card is stated in the upper left corner. Some blue cards already in play may give you a discount. For example, E gives you a discount when playing a space card. You may also use steel and titanium to help pay for building and space cards respectively. 2. Paying and performing immediate effects. First, you must pay the card's cost. Then, the lower panel of the card shows you any immediate effects. These effects, and other effects triggered by the card you just played, are performed in any order you choose. Any production, see brown boxes on cards A, B, D, and E, must be performed. Resources or production with a red frame means you can affect any player you choose, even yourself. Resources or production without red frames always affect yourself and must be performed. So card A essentially steals a titanium production from an opponent. While in B, D, and E, you must decrease your own energy or plant production in order to increase your mega credit production. Cards may also feature tiles and tags with a red border, and that red border signifies that you may target any player's tiles or tags. This is also specified in the card text. Any resources are gained or removed. Again, a red border means you can choose the resources of any player. So playing card C is usually not very nice. Red bordered resources are optional though, so card C does not force you to remove your own plants, even if you are the only player that has any plant resources. Non-standard resources that are not collected on your player board are instead collected on specific cards. By default, those resources are usually placed on the same card that generates them. Livestock, D, for example, gains 1 animal resource cube on it when you use its action. A blue card's action may be used only once per generation. Any tiles placed by cards follow the rules for tiles. If a card symbol has an asterisk, then it is an exception to the normal rules. You must read the explanation in parentheses to see details of how the card works. Victory point icons serve no function during play, but will be counted in the final scoring. Card D may be worth several victory points if its action, top panel, has had time to work a few rounds to add more animal resources to the card. 3. Place card. Events, red cards, are collected in a personal pile face down after being played. Their tags only apply when being played. For example, using the discount on card E when playing a space event. Automated cards, green, are placed face up in a stack on the table with only the top row visible. They have no further effect, but since they represent the current extent of your operations, their tags still apply. Active cards, blue, have ongoing effects that may trigger at any time, or actions that you may use, just like corporations. Since you need to keep track of these cards, they are placed with the top panel visible. Many cards represent ideas for terraforming. They may affect the global parameters or give you a higher terraform rating in other ways. They may represent photosynthesizing organisms releasing oxygen, or heat sources that gradually raise the temperature. There are also other cards that are interlinked with the terraforming process, either requiring some terraforming to have been done or specializing in early conditions. Each card has a flavor text that may help you get a feeling for what the card does in reality. B. Use a standard project. The 6 standard projects printed on the game board are always available to the players. Each of them may be used several times during the same generation. 1. Sell patents. You may discard 1 or more cards from hand to gain 1 mega credit per card discarded. 2. Power plant. For 11 mega credits, you get to increase your energy production 1 step. 3. Asteroid. For 14 mega credits, you get to increase the temperature 1 step, and therefore your terraform rating. 4. Aquafire. For 18 mega credits, you get to place an ocean tile. You also get 1 terraform rating and collect any placement bonus for the tile. 5. Greenery. For 23 mega credits, you get to place a greenery tile, which increases oxygen level and your terraform rating 1 step, and collect any placement bonus for the tile. Put a player marker on the tile. 6. City. For 25 mega credits, you get to place a city tile. Collect any placement bonus for the tile and place a player marker on it. You also get to increase your mega credit production 1 step. Example, Robinson's first action on his turn is to use the standard project city to gain his 3rd city tile, continuing to get extra bonuses from his corporation, Tharsis Republic. C. Claim a milestone. If you meet the criteria of a milestone, you may claim it by paying 8 mega credits and placing your player marker on it. A milestone may only be claimed by 1 player, and only 3 of the 5 milestones may be claimed in total, so there is a race for these. Each claim milestone is worth 5 victory points at the end of the game. These are the milestones and what you need to claim them, besides paying 8 mega credits. 1. Terraformer. Have a terraform rating of at least 35. 2. Mayor. Own at least 3 city tiles. 3. Gardener. Owning at least 3 greenery tiles. 4. Builder. Having at least 8 building tags in play. 5. Planner. Having at least 16 cards in your hand when you claim this milestone. Example, Robinson's second action, after building his 3rd city, is to claim the mayor, which he now qualifies for. He pays 8 mega credits and places 1 of his markers on the mayor milestone. This is worth 5 victory points. Only 2 more milestones may be claimed now, and no one else may claim mayor. D. Fund an award. There is no requirement that must be met to fund an award. The first player to fund an award pays 8 mega credits and places a player marker on it. The next player to fund an award pays 14 mega credits. The last pays 20 mega credits. Only 3 awards may be funded. Each award can only be funded once. In the final scoring, each award is checked, and 5 victory points are awarded to the player who wins that category. It does not matter who funded the award. The second place gets 2 victory points, except in a 2-player game where the second place does not give any victory points. Ties are friendly. More than one player may get the first or second place bonus. If more than one player gets first place bonus, no second place is awarded. These are the awards and what they are awarded for. 1. Landlord, owning the most tiles in play. 2. Banker, having the highest mega credit production. 3. Scientist, having the most science tags in play. 4. Thermalist, having the most heat resource cubes. 5. Miner, having the most steel and titanium resource cubes. Example, Stanley pays 8 mega credits to fund the award for Thermalist, since he thinks his GHG factories will give him all the heat he needs to win that award. When the game ends, though, Kim also produces heat and has 12 in her resource box, compared to Stanley's 12 and Robinson's 5. Stanley and Kim both get 5 victory points for first place, while Robinson gets nothing. E. Use the action on a blue card. Many blue cards and corporations have actions as indicated by a red arrow. Each such action may be used once each generation. When you use an action on a blue card, you must first pay any cost stated on the left of the arrow. You get whatever the arrow points to, and place a player marker on the card to indicate that it has been used this generation. The player markers will be removed during the production phase. Example, towards the end of the game, Stanley has Livestock, card D, in play. He can choose its action on his turn, adding a resource cube, an animal, to that card, and placing a player marker on it. Blue cards may also have effects that are always active, like shuttles, card E. When you play a space card, it costs 2 mega credits less. These effects are not actions, no red arrow, so you can always use them. F. Convert plants into greenery. 8 plant resources may be turned into a greenery tile, which increases oxygen level 1 step, and therefore also your terraforming ranking 1 step. Note that the greenery tile must be placed next to another of your tiles, if possible, and may generate placement bonuses. Example, Robinson removes 8 plant resources from his plant box on the player board, increasing oxygen level 1 step, and raising his terraforming rating 1 step as well. Then he takes a greenery tile and places it between 2 of his city tiles, and takes the placement bonus, which happens to be 2 plants, as printed on the chosen area. Not only did this yield 1 terraform rating plus placement bonus, but the greenery will be worth 1 victory point in itself, as well as 1 victory point to each adjacent city in the endgame scoring. G. Convert heat into temperature. 8 heat resources may be spent to increase temperature 1 step, and therefore your terraform rating 1 step. Game end. When all 3 global parameters, ocean, temperature, and oxygen, have reached their goals, the game ends at the end of that generation. After the production phase, players have 1 extra chance to convert plants into 1 or more greenery tiles. In player order, this may also trigger other effects, such as placement bonuses. Then the final scoring takes place. To avoid confusion, we recommend that 1 player is chosen to handle the scoring, and that all other players check that the scoring is done correctly. Final scoring. 1. Terraform rating. Your terraform rating at the end of the game is your basic score. Move your marker onward from this point to add victory points from the rest of the scoring. 2. Awards. Gives the leading player in that category 5 victory points and the runner-up 2 victory points, except in a 2-player game. Ties are friendly. Players at the same level get the same victory points for first or second place. Add your points to your terraform rating track. 3. Milestones. Each claim milestone is worth 5 victory points. 4. Game board. Players get 5 victory points from the map on the game board. Each greenery tile is worth 1 victory point, and each city tile is worth 1 victory point for each greenery adjacent to it, regardless of who owns the greenery tiles. Count these in player order to avoid confusion. 5. Cards. First, count all victory points on cards that collect resources. Then, gather all of your remaining played cards, including all your played events, and count your victory points. If you have Jovian cards, these may have to be counted separately. The player with the highest total score is the winner. Any ties are won by having the most mega credits. Example, Stanley has a final terraform rating of 38, so that's where he starts counting his remaining victory points. He got 5 victory points from the award Thermalist, and has also claimed the Planner milestone for 5 victory points. From the game board, Stanley has 3 greenery tiles around his lone city, so that's 3 victory points from the greenery tiles and 5 victory points for the city, because it also lies next to 2 greenery tiles owned by Robinson. This brings the total up to 56 victory points before the cards are considered. Stanley has 3 resources on his livestock card, giving him 3 victory points. He also has a total of 6 extra victory points on his other face-up cards, blue and green, and -1 victory point on an event card, red, making his final score 64 victory points. Suggestions: if you don't understand the symbols, read the explanation in parentheses on the card or see page 14 and 15 in the rulebook. Sometimes there are many effects to keep track of, so please help each other. When several effects are triggered at the same time, the active player chooses the order, even for other players' triggered effects. Colorblind? Let the green player use silver cubes as markers on the game board. Game variants. Corporate Era, Extended Game. To play the extended game, simply add all cards marked with a red and white icon on the card's lower left border at the start of setup, including 2 new corporations. Players start with no extra production of resources. Corporate Era can be combined with any other game variant. Corporate Era focuses on economy and technology. These are projects that do not contribute directly to the terraforming, but make the corporations stronger, adding new strategic choices to the game. Playing Corporate Era makes the game longer and more complex. We do not recommend it for players new to Terraforming Mars. Solo version. The solo version uses the Corporate Era setup, including all the Corporate Era cards, and start without any production, except for what your corporation may give you. All rules apply as usual with these exceptions. 1. Before you choose your cards, place 2 neutral city tiles on the map with an adjacent greenery tile each. These tiles are not yours and do not increase the oxygen level. Reveal and discard the 4 top cards of the deck and use their cost number to determine the positions of the tiles. The first city is placed counting from top left to right and down like reading. Skip any illegal placements, like areas reserved for ocean. For the second city, you step backwards from the bottom right in the same fashion. Then you place the 2 greeneries by counting the cost numbers and stepping clockwise around each city, starting from the top left, skipping illegal placements. Special case. If you choose to play Tharsis Republic this game, you get a mega credit production for the 2 neutral cities, even though they are placed before you reveal your corporation. 2. Start with a terraforming rating of 14 instead of 20, marked solo on the track, and without the extra production of resources described for the standard game. 3. Awards and milestones are not used. 4. You have a neutral opponent that you can steal from or reduce any kinds of resources and production from. 5. You always play 14 generations, marked solo. In order to win, you need to complete terraforming, i.e. making the 3 global parameters reach their goal before the end of Generation 14. After Generation 14, you may convert plants into greenery tiles following normal rules but without raising the oxygen. And finally, you score victory points to get as high a score as possible. If you have not completed terraforming by the end of Generation 14, you lose. Draft variant. If more interaction is desired, the draft variant may be used. During the research phase, the players draft 4 cards to buy from instead of just drawing 4 to buy from. Each player first gets 4 cards and chooses one to draft, putting it aside and passing the rest to the next player. Then you have 3 cards. Set one aside of them and pass the rest to the left. Then, set aside one of the 2 you receive, pass the last card, and finally receive your last card. Then examine the 4 cards you've set aside, drafted, and choose which to buy 3 mega credits each and which to discard. Drafting is not used during the first generation since the first research phase is skipped. Cards are passed clockwise during even number generations and counterclockwise during odd number generations. This variant allows players to affect which cards other players get access to, and increase your ability to pursue a certain strategy or predict which parameter will rise first. The draft variant adds some extra game time and is not recommended for players new to Terraforming Mars. About the author. Jacob Fryxelius got his doctoral degree in chemistry at Stockholm University in 2006. Discovering his passion for analyzing and expanding things, he then began to work as a science teacher for high schools and colleges, getting his teaching diploma in 2011. Board games being a hobby since childhood, he has developed several games over the years. In 2011, he co-founded FryxGames with his brother Enoch, Daniel, and Jonathan, and that same year, his game Space Station was released. Between his teaching job, FryxGames, children, and a lovely wife, life is full indeed. Symbols. Victory points. You win the game by having the most victory points. Victory points are scored at the end of the game for your terraforming rating, from tiles on the map, from milestones and awards, and from many of the cards. Parameters. Terraforming Mars is about making Mars Earth-like enough to live freely on it. There are 4 parameters on the game board connected to this process: terraform rating, temperature, oxygen level, and ocean coverage. Terraform rating is the measure of how much you have contributed to the terraforming process. Each time you raise the oxygen level, the temperature, or place an ocean tile, your terraform rating increases as well. Each step of terraform rating is worth 1 victory point at the end of the game, and the terraforming committee awards you income according to your terraform rating. You start at 20. The mean temperature at the equator is raised 2 degrees Celsius at a time, from negative 30 degrees Celsius to plus 8 degrees Celsius. This will create an equatorial zone where water stays liquid. This symbol means you raise the temperature 1 step, and therefore you also increase your terraform rating 1 step. The thermometer symbol means you raise the temperature 1 step. The oxygen level is measured as a percentage of an ATM of pressure, meaning that this percentage is comparable to Earth's 21% oxygen. At 14%, the atmosphere resembles that of Earth at a 3,000 meter elevation. 2 red circles encased in a larger black circle means that you raise the oxygen level 1 step and therefore also increase your terraform rating 1 step. Each ocean tile represents 1% ocean coverage. With 9% of the surface covered by oceans, Mars will have a hydrological cycle, creating rain and rivers. A blue water drop encased by a hexagon means that you place an ocean tile and therefore increase your terraform rating 1 step and get any placement bonuses. Resources. All resources are represented by resource cubes. These come in 3 sizes: 1 copper, 5 silver, and 10 gold, and can be used as any kind of resource. Where you place them determines what they are. The 6 standard resources are mega credits, steel, titanium, plants, energy, and heat, and they are collected on the player board. Certain cards may also collect other resources, usually animal and microbe cards. If a card adds a non-standard resource, it is generally placed on that same card. If a card adds a resource to another card, then that card has to be a card that collects that kind of resource. The mega credit is the general currency used for buying and playing cards and using standard projects, milestones, and awards. This is represented by a yellow square with a euro symbol. Steel represents building materials on Mars. Usually this means some kind of magnesium alloy. Steel is used to pay for building cards, being worth 2 mega credit per steel. This is represented by a brown square with a wrench and hammer symbol. Titanium represents resources in space or for the space industry. Titanium is used to pay for space cards, being worth 3 mega credits per titanium. This is represented by a black square with a yellow star. Plants use photosynthesis. As an action, 8 plant resources can be converted into a greenery tile that you place on the board. This increases the oxygen level and your terraform rating 1 step. Each greenery is worth 1 victory point and generates 1 victory point to each adjacent city tile. This resource is symbolized by a green square with a leaf. Energy is used by many cities and industries. This usage may either be via an action on a blue card or via a decrease in energy production. Leftover energy is converted into heat. This is represented by a purple square encasing a single white lightning symbol. Heat warms up the Martian atmosphere. As an action, 8 heat resources may be spent to increase temperature, and therefore your terraform rating 1 step. This is represented by an orange square encasing 3 yellow lightning symbols. Other resources, including animals and microbes, are collected on their respective cards, which also define what they do. Production of a resource is depicted by having the resource symbol in a brown production box. In the example on page 14, the symbol means that you increase your plant production parameter on your player board 1 step. This in turn will give you a steady income of plant resources. Production is not limited to 10. If your production exceeds 10, just leave the marker on 10 and start a new marker to complement it. Only mega credit production can be negative, only as far as -5 though. But since Terraform rating is added to your production, your total income will not be negative. Cards represent huge endeavors that players may undertake. The cards have 0 to 3 different tags that describe some thematic aspect of the card, and that can be utilized in conjunction with certain other cards. Cards cost 3 mega credits to buy into your hand during the research phase, but have different costs to play from your hand into play. When you encounter this card symbol, it means you may draw a card into your hand without paying for it. Tags. Cards have 0 to 3 tags that thematically describe them and allow other cards to relate to them. There are no special rules for different tags. All tags are symbolized by a circle encasing some sort of symbol. I will only be referring to the symbol as I go through these tags. Building. This project involves construction on Mars. Steel may be used to pay for this card, represented by a house. Space. This project uses space technology. Titanium may be used to pay for this card. It is represented by a sun symbol. Power. This project is focused on energy production or handling. It is represented by a single lightning bolt. Science. This project enhances your scientific knowledge. Some cards require science tags. This is represented by an atom symbol. Jovian, meaning having to do with Jupiter. This project represents infrastructure in the outer solar system. It is represented by the Jupiter planet. Earth. This project is related to activities on Earth. It is represented by the Earth symbol. Plant. This project involves plant life or other photosynthesizing organisms. It is represented by a leaf. Microbe. This project involves microbes for specific purposes. It is represented by microbial images as if under a microscope. Animal. This project involves animals, generates victory points. It is represented by a paw print. City. This project places a city tile. This often requires energy production and produces mega credit. It is represented by a city skyline. Event. This project is a one-time event. All events are red cards that are turned face down after being played. It is represented by an arrow pointing down. Tiles. The game board has a map where tiles may be placed. When placing a tile, you may receive a placement bonus printed on the area, plus 2 mega credits for each adjacent ocean. There are 4 kinds of tiles. A hexagon with a water droplet. This symbol means you place an ocean tile. This increases your terraform rating 1 step. There are 12 areas on the game board that are reserved for ocean tiles. Ocean tiles may only be placed on such areas, and no other tiles may be placed there. Ocean tiles are not owned by any player, but generate a 2 mega credit placement bonus each for any player subsequently placing tiles next to them. Hex with a tree symbol. This symbol means you place a greenery tile with an owner marker. This also increases oxygen level and terraform rating, as indicated by the oxygen symbol. The tile must be placed next to another tile that you own if possible. The tile must be placed next to another tile that you own if possible. If you have no tiles or no area next to them, you may place it on any available area. Greenery tiles are worth 1 victory point at the end of the game and also generate a victory point to any adjacent city. See city rules. A hex containing a skyline. This symbol means you place a city tile with an owner marker. The tile may not be placed next to another city tile. Each city tile is worth 1 victory point for each adjacent greenery tile. Each city tile is worth 1 victory point for each adjacent greenery tile, regardless of who owns the greenery tile, at the end of the game. A hex surrounding a nuclear waste symbol. Symbol tiles in brown mean that you place the special tile described on the card with an owner marker. Any special rules and placement restrictions are specified on the card. Red border on icons. When an icon has a red border, it means that it targets any player, you, or an opponent. A card that removes red bordered resources may remove those resources from one player. This effect may also be performed partly or not at all. A card effect that reduces production of a red bordered resource must be performed. So if your opponent doesn't have that production, then you must lower your own production or not play the card at all. A card with a red bordered tile icon targets any or all players' tiles. A card with a red bordered tag icon targets all cards with that icon, whether they belong to you or another player. Asterisks. When an icon has an asterisk next to it, there is a special rule that you must read in the explanation text on the card. And that is the rulebook for Terraforming Mars. I have a lot of feelings about this game. I like it, but I also don't, hence why I have a lot of feelings. It's a fun engine builder, and you're able to get more and more powerful over the course of the game. And I think maybe that's why I don't like it, because I'm not miserable the whole time. I need a game that makes me struggle. Terraforming Mars is definitely more about building that engine and constantly having that increase. I know I prefer the drafting method of cards because it allows for a bit more control in the randomness of getting cards. Because if one player just gets cards that are better for them and helps their engine more, or synthesizes with their engine better, it can put other players at a disadvantage just because they didn't have that luck, which drafting can kind of offset and make it a bit more enjoyable on that front. But this is definitely more of a feel-good game. It is a game where, you're racing for the top points and not just barely trying to survive, which is generally the realm that I live in. But all in all, Terraforming Mars is a pretty fun game. The phrasing in the rulebook is a little difficult to read at times, but the imagery and the wording make it fairly clear what you are supposed to do, and the cards really explain anything that the rulebook leaves out. And that's it for today on Reading Rulebooks. If you like this podcast, make sure to check out the MakeCraftGame YouTube channel, as well as MakeCraftGame.com for more content. If there's a specific rulebook you want to hear, leave a comment on any of the Reading Rulebooks YouTube videos. I hope you have a great day, and I'll catch you next time on Reading Rulebooks.